Poisonrana.
Hello.
Hello.
Braden Herrington here with Davie Portman for Poisonrana. You found us here live on YouTube. Of course, I have our own YouTube video up in my earphone, so I'm hearing myself on delay yelling at me like, hello. But hello, we are David and Brady. Messing our own names up here too. But
are you okay?
You found us at poisonrana.ca. You found us in whatever podcast app you're listening to right now. And it's Sunday, 2:00, 3/16 day, and we are live.
We are live on youtube.com/@poisonranapod. Hello, tadpoles. How are we doing today? I see Maddie B. I see Magan. I see Chris Leone. If you're in the chat, throw up the frog. Say hello. How are we doing on this beautiful Sunday?
It's a beautiful Sunday. They know the days today, tomorrow, this whole weekend are known for people drinking. If it's not St. Patrick's Day, it's 3/16 day. So there's a lot of rain. Just a lot of rain today here in Toronto, at least. But you know what? A pretty good.
It's raining where you are?
Yeah. It's raining.
Oh, we haven't had any down here.
Oh yeah, it's very
pretty
rainy.
nice.
I can barely see outside my window.
Really?
Right now.
Oh, it's actually kind of nice at the BDE. Yeah, weird.
Excellent.
Yeah, more importantly, it's my mum's birthday. Shout out mums. Happy birthday.
Shout out Mumsy.
Yes.
Happy birthday. 3/16 day. Does she celebrate? I imagine she's somewhere right now with your Grammy, just double fisting some cans.
She was sorting out flat pack furniture when I called her up. So she's having a hell of a day by the sounds of things.
Very nice. She's saving the green beer for later. She's saving the Guinness for later.
Yeah, I don't think she'll be partaking in any of that. I need to sort out my lighting. I look like Seamus right now.
Yes.
I set up my new camera. I bought a new tripod the other day, so trying to use that, but I haven't quite fixed the settings yet.
You look like Triple H in an elimination chamber pod.
Oh yeah,
like that one image when the light's just like on him,
right?
You know what I'm talking.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to do a bro kick or something, which is very apt for today. So
absolutely,
on this weekend. Do you like my shirt? I've got it's like St. Patrick's Day Stitch.
I love it, but I don't understand what Stitch has to do with St. Patrick's Day. But I also love.
I've never seen the film. I assume he's Irish.
Never seen Lilo and Stitch? Wow! Why don't you wear like a band shirt that you've never listened to? Wow! I feel like Disney is up here. I feel like that movie would be up your alley.
I think it's that period of time where between where you're like a kid and you love Disney, and then you're like a teen and you're like, no, I'm an adult. I don't watch Disney. And then you get old again and you appreciate Disney. So I feel like there's that period of time. What is it?
When did that come out?
Groove and all that. Oh,
yeah,
I'd say like 2005, something like that. Okay.
Yeah, like my dad, remarried, and I have like half brothers that are younger than me. So around 2002, I remember going to the theaters with my younger brother to go see this movie. So that's probably why, because I feel like I also was maybe too old, but now it's everywhere. I'm seeing Stitch. Every store has Stitch shirts, socks, and then the new movie, the trailer coming out for it. He was on the Super Bowl running around on the field, sort of, the CGI. So I guess Disney is like, we're going to go balls to the wall with Stitch again. And hey, good. I actually think the movie looks pretty good, the new like live action. So maybe you got to watch the old one to catch up. I feel like the meaning of it, if I'm not spoiling or anything, like the meaning is, hey, family can come in all shapes and sizes. And Disney's always good with their hidden meanings in their movies about killer aliens and shit. So shout out Stitch.
Stitch is a killer alien?
Yeah, I'm giving way too much away, but it's literally in the new trailer. In the opening minutes of the movie, he's a killer alien designed and created to murder people. Oh, so they try to kill him, and he escapes to Earth. So
I thought it was just about this little Irish creature running around making
He's
friends.
Not Irish at all, so I really don't know what that shirt is.
But you know what is Irish? The leprechaun, who we just talked about because he spent a little bit of time in the hood. I'm going to pass on to you because I just want to grab my coffee. But
absolutely,
yes, leprechaun in the hood.
Yes, has nothing to do with Lilo and Stitch. However, that would be a crazy crossover. Yeah, Lilo and Stitch is great, but the Leprechaun even better. I'm not sure if anyone out there has seen the Leprechaun. All the power to you if you have. And for some reason, Davey and I, for the past 5 years, have been doing a St. Patrick's Day tradition. and we love traditions here at Poisonrana. So we've been reviewing the Leprechaun films, and if you've listened to our reviews, you may know or notice that we fucking hate these movies now. We know more about these movies than your average day person, but oh my God, why did we do this to ourselves? And like, we're already at 5, so we're not going to stop now, because no one's ever, we've been called a lot of things, but you could never call us quitters. And this year we're looking at Leprechaun 5 in the Hood, featuring Warwick Davis versus Ice-T. It's the movie you've always dreamt about, maybe the movie you love or love to hate. However, we reviewed it, and I'm putting it up as soon as this show ends. I have it ready to be uploaded for our patrons out there for a very happy and healthy St. Patrick's Day. But
we're going to get you in the mood with this one. You know what's exciting is looking at it. We only have 3 of these films left. We've only got 1 left of the original series. Okay. And then I think we've got a Hornswoggle one in there somewhere.
So what do we do after the next 3 years? We got to find
watch something good.
Yeah. What's another? The Departed. I feel like we owe it. That's a long one, but like a really good movie. But like,
I will say the saving grace of these films are they're very short and they're so very quick reviews. So when work is busy, we're like, okay, this sucks, but we're not dedicating 3 hours of our life, which we also did this week for our latest episode of The Champ is Here.
Yes, absolutely. If leprechauns and shamrocks aren't your thing, well, maybe some power slams and some proto bombs and some post-wrestling synergy will be up your alley, because we were joined by Jack Wannon and Eric Marcotte from Post Wrestling to chat all about John Cena's 7th WWE title reign. We're getting a lot of love for this podcast series, and I super appreciate it. And if you're not listening, you are behind, and you need to catch up on what some are saying is the best podcast that covers John Cena's every WWE title reign in history. I'm not sure if you've caught up, but like, we're getting some high praise for this one. So check out The Champ is Here. We've done 5 to 6 episodes and now 7 where we've been going through every John Cena title reign. And what better time than now? The last time is now, and your time to go to patreon.com/Poisonrana. It's $5 to get this show, the Leprechaun show, plus every show we've done in that back catalog. And it's $5, and you'll get all the episodes of The Champ is Here, including Eric Marcotte and Jack Wannon, proving to us that they are not the same person. So that was good.
It's really, we're using John Cena just as an excuse so we can go back and talk about every single guest GM that happened on Raw.
Who was your favorite guest GM?
Oh, the NASCAR blokes, 100%.
I think Donald Trump. I'm trying to think of who else.
We don't mention that name on this show. Yeah.
I'm trying to see best guest host GM Monday Night Raw. We've talked about
NASCAR. Bob Barker was always like a favorite for people, like that whole thing.
The
Muppets, yeah.
Buzz Aldrin.
Really? Okay.
Jeez. We're not there yet, I don't think.
Does he just book the world title match or something?
Yeah, he books WrestleMania on the moon or something.
It really is like one of the laziest times in pro wrestling. Some of these things. You've got big 4 events, and it's how is the match set about? Oh, I don't know, because Ashton Kutcher wanted it or something like it.
So, I mean, we could tie this in with St. Patrick's Day, because we didn't do this on purpose, but the last 2 Champ is Here shows, we've talked about Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, because this match has happened, and we'll talk about it and get you primed for the WrestleMania rematch. That's right. I'm calling it a rematch because it is. We've talked now about 2 times these guys have fought, but how crazy is it that this is St. Patrick's Day, and somehow we managed to tie things around. Everything revolves around wrestling. Everything is wrestling, because on this show, we talk about John Cena's 7th title reign. And during the 7th title reign, he feuds with DX, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, who are also feuding with Hornswoggle. It all comes back around, no matter what we do.
I thought you were going with Sheamus becoming champion, but
that too. So it's a very Irish episode of The Champ is Here. So we did not plan this; it just happened to happen. And yes, not only do you get Hornswoggle threatening to sue DX for, I don't know, abuse, or the other way around, I can't remember, and then Sheamus winning his first WWE title from John Cena by Cena getting thrown off the top through the table. You remember it, and we talk about it with Jack and Eric.
Thrown off?
He falls. He does not get shoved. He just falls, and it's the wet fart title victory for Sheamus. But yes, we talk all about it. We had a ton of fun with those two guys, and love the work they do at Post Wrestling. So I thought it would be great to chat with them together, and we had an awesome time. I don't know how we can spend 3 hours plus talking about John Cena every month, but somehow we do it. We make it out alive, and it makes for a very entertaining podcast.
And we've got some great guests coming up in the next couple of months. We won't announce yet, just in case things fall through, but got some really great guests who I'm looking forward to chatting all about the next few reigns of John Cena. It is St. Patrick's Day weekend. I worked last night. The bar was crazy busy. I am sore. I am hurting. It was nonstop. But I do want to pat ourselves on the back, because as busy as it was, like all day, nonstop, we still sold $1.5 grand more at the lock-in.
I was thinking it. I didn't want to bring it up, but you brought it up. We make a lot of money.
It's going to be a great negotiating tactic, which when you consider, like during the actual chamber event, like the bar was pretty quiet. So we sold more in the space of probably over the course of the day, 6 hours than the entire day. And yes, it was busy. It's the busiest shift I've worked for a long time.
Wow.
As I said, I'm hurting. A lot of Guinness being poured, a lot of baby Guinness, a lot of green beer, and Jameson shots. But so yeah, I'm patting ourselves on the back for that. But it just shows kind of how popular these events are getting now. And I don't want you guys to miss out. It is WrestleMania season. You might be going to Vegas, but you might be sticking around the area. Or, you might be a couple of hours drive from the
905er
and be like, you know what? I want to hang out with the Poisonrana lads for a little bit of a watch party. Yes, we are doing it on April 19th and April 20th at Gabby's King West. We will be hosting a little watch event that just happens to coincide with WrestleMania. We'll be having prizes on the go. We'll be having drink specials. I suggest trying to get the combo ticket. We have a few of these combo tickets available if you are able to come to both nights. It does save you a little bit of cash. This is already a high demand. The tickets are flying off the shelf. So get in there. Just go to Poisonrana.ca to get your tickets. And I should probably add that link to Poisonrana.ca.
Absolutely. Like anyone who's listened, you're there in spirit. We have so many supporters all over the world who've come to some of our worldwide events, but we know maybe you won't make the trip to Toronto just to watch wrestling at a bar, and that's cool. But your spirit lives on. We feel you there. The energy of the Poison Pals and the wrestling friends live on in our Poison parties. But for anyone who has come to these, we like to have fun. We like to mingle and get everyone together, and wrestling is this weird escape that we all love. And it used to be this niche thing where a lot of people didn't have friends to talk about it with. And I feel like that's slowly changing in today's, the popularity of wrestling right now is just through the roof. So we really pride ourselves on the community, and having events like this is like, people from all over the place and from all walks of life show up to this thing, and all is welcome at the Poisonrana parties, and we just have a great time. We have our regulars who show up to watch and come to everything and support, and it's been so much fun. And we do things our own way. We're the dive bar of wrestling parties and podcasts, and we love it. So can't wait to see any of you there at Poisonrana.ca for links for all the stuff that we do, and appreciate the support, because we are just two guys who do this thing for fun, and it's caught on, and we really appreciate the Toronto community, but the worldwide community, because like you said, Davey, some people are going to Vegas, some people are going to all the stuff, and it's a great time to be a fan right now. And I always get a little cheesy and mushy when I say, like, hey, this is a cool thing, because I was one of those guys, as a teenager, as a young kid, like, oh man, everyone hates me because I love wrestling, or everyone's like, oh, you like that wrestling, oh. It's not like that anymore. It's completely changed, and wrestling fans have taken over again, sort of. So, like, I'm always excited.
I've had some regulars like popping in during our events, and they've been like, I just had no idea it was as big as this. And similarly, yesterday, I had two regulars who were like, hey, this wrestling thing sounds really fun. You're doing WrestleMania? We're like, yeah. It's like, how do I come? I was like, you buy a ticket. Gave her the link, and then my phone buzzes during my shift, and they've bought tickets. These aren't really even wrestling fans. They're just like caught up in the hype. They saw how big it was in the city 2 weeks ago, and they're like, I want to be involved with that. So they picked up tickets. So, you know, as I said, get in. If non-fans are buying tickets to these events, you want to make sure you don't miss out. And we love to see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, there's places all over the world that do watch parties and wrestling parties and stuff like that, and all the power to them. And we did this because not a lot of people, in fact, no one at the time when we started was doing this. And like I said, like, yeah, you could watch alone at home sometimes, but once in a while, especially the big ones like Mania, you want to get together and have fun. So we do like the drinks that you do, the special drinks, the Poisonranas, the rumble shots, etc. But we also do some raffles and some games and some trivia, and we got some sweet prizes. The Stone Cold vests. It's 316 days, so we gotta always plug that. A year ago we bought like a bulk order of a lot of Austin vests, and every time we sell them off or raffle them off for prizes and stuff, people go nuts for these Austin vests.
I think it's the best. We were lucky enough to secure some like actual like legit wrestling titles for the first couple events, and then it kind of sucked because we set our bar so high, and then we're like, fuck, we can't, like, we didn't get the deal anymore, and like I can't just buy a $500 title belt for all these. Whereas these, I think people love just as much, and people get legit excited and are like, hey, I'll just buy it from you. I'll buy it from you. So I think we found a good thing with these. I'm excited. It should be arriving in the next week or so. But we've talked on certain shows before. I know when I've been on Scrump Show, he asks on the PWT cast, so what's your favorite piece of merch you've owned, or what have you always wanted? Mine is the DX69 Suck It jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally secured these as prizes for the next event. So I feel this is a favorite amongst a lot of like Attitude Era fans and stuff. So we'll be giving away them Stone Cold vests. Yeah.
Jerseys from DX. Like, yeah, we got some crazy stuff. And our friend Reckless Rob always giving us the obscure wrestling autographs sometimes. He's hooked us up with some weird autographs that usually make someone in the bar pop. Like there's always a fan of everyone's favorite mid-carders and stuff. So anyone can just, play wrestling at a bar and stuff, but we like to make it interactive and fun and how we would like it if we went to a bar that played some wrestling. So again, all the power to anyone who's supported here nor there. We appreciate all the love. And of course, down the line, we're not going to Vegas for WrestleMania this year, but we will be doing this watch party in Toronto, Gabby's. Check all our links for tickets if you are in the Toronto area. Would love to see you, absolutely. And of course, going forward, we'll have some more down the line. I imagine we get some more shows in Toronto or travel for some future shows and stuff. So the party never stops here at Poisonrana, and we appreciate the support wherever you are worldwide. And if you are going to Vegas, hey, while you're going to Vegas, you can help support some Toronto friends of ours. Demand Lucha will be doing a show Vegas weekend. Demand Lucha on all socials. Give them a follow for everything that they do, because we just love going to their shows here in the 6, and they're doing a show in Vegas, which is absolutely crazy. So Demand Lucha, give them a follow, Instagram, Twitter, all that for details on everything that they do, because we really support those guys as well. And we're bummed because we're not going to Vegas, and we're like, our own home promotion is going, and we can't even go to support because we're like, but we're there in spirit for sure, because it's awesome. So anyone going to Vegas, we love any input on any of the shows that you attend and stuff. I'm definitely butthurt about Mania itself and DDT, because DDT's announced a pretty fun looking show too. So Mania season, all guns blazing, and you love to see it. There's so much wrestling. We're gonna spend the next hour to 2 hours talking about wrestling, and I guarantee you there's so many shows this weekend that we won't be talking about because there's just so much to take in this week. So I know there's wrestling all over the place, and we support no matter what, unless it's TNA. I can't support them. I'm joking. I'm joking.
You're like a bitter ex who's still bitter like 20 years later. I just can't get over it.
It's not that. It's just that I go, TNA Sacrifice. I have some time today. Maybe I'll watch TNA Sacrifice. Okay, what was the main event of TNA Sacrifice? Wait, Matt Hardy, the Colognes, Ziggler. You know what? I don't want to sacrifice watching TNA Sacrifice.
That was the main event?
Dude, come on, man. They're making it really hard.
But Elias is
okay,
cool.
Look at that main event. What is that? Fandango, Kurt Hawkins, the Colognes. Those are the Colognes, right? They're back.
I guess so.
Yeah. And that's Eddie Edwards, Alicia Edwards' husband, versus Ziggler, Elias, Matt Hardy, and Joe Hendry. Come on, the state of this. Come on, man. I don't want to be someone who's just hating to hate, but like I literally put this on and went, wait, what? That can't be real.
This is one of their pay-per-views, right? To be fair, this isn't like a big.
Yeah,
I think this is one of their monthly ones. Yeah.
Meaning I won't be paying to watch the show. Sorry, TNA. I'm being an asshole. I'm really not hating, but I am. I just thought that was a pretty hilarious match graphic. Like that in 2025, you can't tell me that this was a real graphic, but it was. So, yeah. Anyways, like I said, there's so much wrestling this weekend. I didn't even realize this was a pay-per-view. I know some TNA, NXT talent doing some crossovers and stuff, but I was legit like scratching my head at like that is their match graphic for their main event for tonight. Okay, got that right. But we are going to talk about a lot of other wrestling this week. We mentioned we've watched a lot of John Cena from 2009, so I'm definitely wrestled out. But there was a lot going on. Like last week was AEW Revolution, and we were watching it, so we didn't do a show beforehand. We did give some thoughts on Tuesday on Up Next. If you haven't checked that out, you should go check that out, as we are live every Tuesday, 10:05 p.m. Eastern. And I will be joined by Sino Evil this Tuesday to chat all about the fallout from Roadblock and the NXT Underground and everything. So join us 10:05 p.m. this Tuesday, Sino Evil and myself chatting about some NXT.
Yeah, it's crazy how quick things move on. Like Revolution feels ages ago now. But yeah, once again, just echoing what I said on Tuesday, absolutely loved that show. I actually, a colleague of mine, the Uber prices were ridiculous last night after work. So I was like, just come back and chill for 20 minutes or whatever, and then they'd have dropped. And he was going on about how much he loves Io Sky. He actually drew Io Sky in one of our Rumble pools, and it's been I've been watching her ever since, and it's so cool. And she's a chick, and she does all this cool stuff. And I was like, oh, you think that's cool? Watch what these women do. And I put on Toni Storm, Mariah May, and watching it for the second time. Mm-hmm. I think it's my match of the year so far. In retrospective, I am still buzzing off of that match. I thought it was excellent, and on rewatch just as good. And I can't believe, like, it comes to the end, it's only 13 minutes and it feels like you've watched this sort of 30-minute epic. I just absolutely loved that match. Other great stuff on the show as well, but yeah, that match in particular I thought was quite special.
It really was. I haven't rewatched it, but I've been having the urge to. I was literally chatting yesterday with another buddy, and he was like, I'm rewatching those 3 matches from the show. I'm like, oh yeah, like I usually do, right? Like when we watch wrestling, whether it's at the bar or with a big group of friends, we're still like engaged in the stuff we want. But sometimes I'm like, oh, did I really love that match? Or was it just because we were like all like sucked in and watching it or whatever? But then I usually tend to rewatch stuff that I really love. And those 3 matches, that sprint there, just kept thinking about it. So I probably will have to put those back on. Like Toni Storm, Mariah May, the feud itself was like one of the best feuds in women's wrestling history. And now this match that like was the climax of it, the Hollywood ending, it delivered. It was like so violent, but done in good taste. And I say that meaning it sounds weird saying that because there's so much blood and weapons and stuff, but like when else do you see women do stuff like that? Especially like women's wrestling is like evolved so much, but like seeing stuff like that, it felt so groundbreaking. It was just so special. So like, yeah, I haven't rewatched it and I keep thinking about it, and I've watched clips and stuff, but it's up there. Like Toni Storm, the whole character work this year has been something that's been so entertaining. And then for that to finally culminate with this one big violent matchup, it was deserving of like the praise that it's getting right now. Like, some people are saying it's one of the best women's matches ever. And I after one watch, I definitely agree. It's definitely up there. You're saying it's already in the running for your match of the year.
I think so. I think like, I I think in recent years, because the quality, the bar is so high nowadays. Like you watch like matches on Dynamite, which 10 years ago would have been a match of the year contender, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think it needs to stand out in a different kind of way. And I know a couple of years ago, we both went for Sami Zayn, Johnny Knoxville, which like how can you compare that to like a Osprey Omega match? You can't really, but it stood out in quite a unique way. And I'd say the same with this. I'm not going to forget this match. Whereas some other sort of great 5-star matches, by the end of the year, you go, oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, I enjoyed that one, but you've forgotten about it. Whereas I think this one's going to stay like firmly in my memory for a long time.
I mean, and then if that was enough, like you got Takeshita Omega in another classic, and then you got the cage match with Fletcher and Osprey, which that 3-match sprint there was just, as Chris Jones in the chat saying, Meltzer gave those 3 matches 5 stars. That's 3 5 stars in a row. Can't think of a pay-per-view that's like, you know, he's not.
And I'd put Hangman MJF right up there as well.
Yeah.
Ricochet like just behind it as well. Like,
sorry, what did you say? Ricochet? You really loved Ricochet's match?
Oh, I've always loved Ricochet. Yeah.
I thought it was a really good pay-per-view. The only thing people obviously will remember that they didn't like was that main event, and like that maybe have dragged things down a little bit. But man, honestly, like that was a solid pay-per-view, and their pay-per-views really don't miss. And it made me want to watch this week. I'm like, okay, there's a few follow-up things that like had my interest, like specifically Hangman and MJF. I'm just like, ooh, where are we going? Are we going to a rematch with this? Like, you know, we'll jump into some AEWs. And I guess while we're on it, we should stay on the topic of AEW, because I feel like we haven't necessarily covered some things in a few weeks front to back.
I think you mentioned the main event, and that's probably a good place to start, is the rematch being announced for Jon Moxley versus the Rated R superstar Cope. I'm sure like there's audible groan. Like I could hear the groans watching Dynamite on my own. I could already hear the internet going, fuck, really? When this graphic came up. I do think running it on TV, there's like different expectations with it. But yeah, it's interesting. Obviously it was a screwy finish. Adam Copeland didn't take a pinfall or whatever. So like realistically, yeah, that always sets you up for an automatic rematch because the guy wasn't pinned. However, I think everyone was so done with this feud already before the bell even rang last Sunday that it's like, we're doing this again. Now, part of me is like, do these people, just like Mox and Cope, realize they kind of stunk up the joint a little bit and kind of want a bit of a redo? I know there's like people online and stuff showing that I think Cope has had 8 losses since returning to wrestling in 2020, and all of them are from like run-ins and cheating and
we'll never forget
being cashed in on and stuff like that.
Former tag team champion with Hulk Hogan. He learned from the best.
Yeah, so I know maybe there's a bit of that, and there's an element of maybe no, I'll do the job. I'll do the job clean as well. I guess it's just some loose ends from the pay-per-view before we can move on to Swerve and Moxley. But yeah, what are your thoughts of this street fight that's been promoted for next week?
Yeah, you know, I think the positioning of it on the pay-per-view, if we just ended with Mariah and Tony, I don't think necessarily everyone would be, you know, shitting on this match as much as we didn't enjoy it. Just standing up against other matches on that card, it like showed it was a bit weak, right? So like rematching it, I'm not necessarily against it because I really liked the small thing on Dynamite, and it felt early in the show where Cope, they did a lot of things that we've talked about for the last like 2 years, where it's like, hey, as soon as the story's over, they just like cut and move and like forget everything. And it's like, don't do that. Like, we like when things like intertwine and make you think about like, oh, hey, they could go this way, or, ooh, they're teasing this. So when Cope had a backstage like face-to-face with Swerve, I really enjoyed it. It was only like a minute long where he's like, hey, I know you got the number 1 contendership, but there's a chance you're facing me. And also, if something happens and I don't get that title, know that if you win, you will be still facing me. Like, he's basically like, hey, I'm going to come for you no matter what. And I really liked, I think Cope, his strength is obviously his acting. Like, he's one of the most believable wrestlers in this run. When it comes to his in-ring stuff, it necessarily hasn't hit maybe like some of the other wrestlers currently going in AEW, but at the same time, I do think he still brings something to the table that's interesting.
I agree. I do like his acting. He does borderline being a bit over the top at times, and I feel there's, and I think this is a lot of the negativity, because these guys never interacted in WWE, but it does feel like a WWE main event.
Mox,
and like Cope. And I think Cope has a lot of WWE instincts that kind of just feel a little cheesy, like Spike. Like the idea of that, like spiked bat, just screams WWE to me. And it there's been a lot of things in his run where it just feels like this is what we'd have done under Vince, and doesn't feel as good as his acting is. It does feel like acting a lot of the time. Whereas Moxley, I thought Mox actually cut a great promo.
Way better promo,
week.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, Moxley's a fantastic promo. I just hate this whole storyline. I hate the Death Riders as a group, as a gimmick. But the line of, measure twice, cut once, or whatever it was, I thought was a great line. So I thought they did a better job actually kind of hyping up this rematch than they did the original match, personally.
That's exactly it. Like, the little things that they did this week, I'm like, okay, like, yeah, we didn't like the match, but they had the Christian stuff, and it just was kind of not it. And I'm wondering, maybe they'll go a little bit crazier out the get-go, just to like do some crazy spots. Like, these two are two of the biggest guys who do some crazy shit, and they didn't do any of that in their match. Like, like, these guys are two known psychopaths in the world of wrestling. I've seen these guys do some of the craziest things in the world of wrestling. I've seen Edge spear Mick Foley through a flaming table at WrestleMania. I've seen Moxley get a fucking chainsaw to his face, CZW. So like, I know these two guys love the deathmatch style shit, and that wasn't what we got on the pay-per-view. So maybe that's
and you really couldn't after the cage, after the Tony Storm match, all that. Like, they're going to be in a better spot, headlining a Dynamite with this. But
do we go with? I wouldn't put the title on Cope. I would have Swerve take the title from him, and then we do Swerve Hangman at All In. Like, that just seems the easiest layup to get people back into like the title picture, to back in a big story. Of course, it's a retread, it's a rematch, but like, I don't think Mox should be headlining All In.
At this point, I think he will. I'd love Swerve to win it. I don't think Hangman is the direction they're going. I think it is Will Ospreay winning the Owen. And I think that's where you crown Ospreay. He feels like the biggest star on the men's side of the company. And I don't think if Swerve beats Mox, you're in the same position as last year's All In, where you've got Swerve, who's very recently turned babyface and is a hot act. And then for the sake of the feud, we got to kind of turn him a heel. Right. And that was, as much as I loved that Danielson match last year, he just turned babyface. And now it's for the sake of this Danielson story has to be the heel. And I think you'll kind of have that if you do Swerve Ospreay. I want to get this title off Moxley, but I think the further into the year we're getting, I do see them holding it off until because it feels like the end of a big angle. We've had this not been good, but 6 months or however long it is title reign of John Mox, 8 months probably, a long reign, and then Ospreay is finally the one to defeat him. I could see that being the direction, as much as I'm like, just reset, just get it on anyone else.
That's where I just am, like, as a fan. I'm like, this is the most boring title run in like this history of this company, like the worst title run easily yet. And I'm talking like the short runs, I'm talking injuries, and like all that. Like, this is the worst, like universally.
It's the Triple H reign of terror is what it feels like.
And we don't even see the title because it's locked up in this briefcase. I just wish we could pivot away from it. But has Darby climbed this mountain yet? Has he climbed that hill? Has he is he going to be back for, because like you would imagine that's still the big like Darby taking the title. But at this point, Darby's an afterthought.
I think that, I mean, obviously it's Darby Allin. He's so popular, you can always heat him back up. But it does feel like just before he went to climb Everest is when you strike, like there is lost momentum not being on TV. And there are your Ospreys, your Hangmans, your Swerves who are getting really hot again. So I personally think it will be Ospreay, and especially him being the first calling his shot, entering the Owen. Yeah. Like it does feel like a bit of foreshadowing that is the direction we're going.
We've seen them. We've seen the match. It was pretty good. We've seen them, Moxley and Ospreay in New Japan and triple threats and some singles, and like it's been good. I just feel like
it's not my favorite.
No. I just feel like Moxley is not the most exciting wrestler and character at this point in his career, and everyone's hating on Moxley right now. It seems pretty unanimous, whether it's fans or people online or just viewers. It just seems like we're not booing you because of your effective heel work. We're booing you because we don't want to see this anymore. We want to move on. We want to cut bait here, essentially. But it doesn't take away from all the stuff Moxley did do for this company, did do for wrestling when he came here and everything. It's just this iteration is really not working. But you're right. Like glimpses in that promo about measuring twice. I'm like, okay, look, you're still good at this. Like you're still really good. It's just this whole thing isn't it, and it's not working. So it's like if we pivot, you should have pivoted like 3 months ago. And it's almost like, well, if you pivot now, are we going to have Ospreay versus Cope? Are we going to do Ospreay Swerve? Are we going to do Swerve? So you're right. Like it wouldn't make sense for him to drop it right now because you're trying to promote this big show in Texas in a few months, but like that's still a ways away. So it means we're going to have to be dragged through the mud with more of this Moxley title. Like Swerve Moxley doesn't sound that interesting to me either.
I mean, I think Swerve is great at the deathmatch style as well. So I think that would be a bit of a bloodbath and we'll play into their favors that way. Well, kind of keeping on the Mox Cope thing, there was the segment with Nick Wayne standing up to Christian. And I actually really liked this. I think it was the best Nick Wayne's ever sounded, and kind of saying about we had a plan and you went against it, and standing up to Christian, asking for an apology, and Christian shouting him down. But I feel we're seeing the cracks in there now, and I do see this being the year you eventually put Christian and Cope back together. Now, whether that is everyone leaves Christian and he needs a friend and to kind of turns babyface and joins Edge, or you have Cope turning heel and joining Christian as the tag team, which I don't know, Edge and Christian were a heel tag team to me. So I feel there could be some fun in that as well. But I thought a pretty good segment backstage between these two.
Yeah, I really liked Christian doing his normal Christian stuff, and then Nick Wayne being like, hey, wait a second. Actually, you lost. And you're a fraud, essentially. And then without missing a beat, Christian's like, oh, yeah? What world titles did your dad ever win? Yeah. Just completely shitting on this kid. I loved it. And then Nick Wayne's Mama Wayne, oh, yeah, good. You're my son. Good job. So there's some riff
I think it's the most effective Christian's been in a while. I think he hasn't been in a while. It's been stale, this character. And I like that we see move into a new direction. And I think it's time. Now you've had Cope in this world title scene. Get him in the tag team now.
We need the tag team.
Do it while you can before any of these guys get hurt again. You don't have a endless amount of time with these two, and we do need to see that reunion at some point.
What FTR versus Edge and Christian is definitely one of the big ones we'd go towards. I guess the Young Bucks,
as well.
Call back the Hardys, get the Dudleys in there, TLC 6, or I don't know. I would like to see it. We should see it at one point. I'm already is Christian's character done now that they did this to him? It's kind of career assassination by having him not win. But at the same time, he has been pretty cold lately. He's not been as popular as he was before. Not saying he's not good or anything. It's just maybe it's running its course and they need to move with the Nick Wayne stuff. And the same is with me as Cope. And I'm a Torontonian. I've supported Edge for a long time. But even this run right now, I'm there's something we could be doing better than what we're getting with it. And it's all coming back to the Mox. Like how can I be interested in a show that the storyline every episode is everyone wants to be world champion and face the world champion, but I fucking can't stand the world champion. So like all of these teased things don't sound interesting, and therefore people don't watch and people change the channel. So like I do think it's affected, it's trickled down into all the other aspects of this show every week, because why should I care about this story? I don't. It seems like Mox doesn't care about this story. The characters are so, I don't know what it is. And I love all of these wrestlers and all these characters, but it's not working. It's so bad.
We had a bunch of people over to watch Revolution, and one of our bartender friends who like is trying to get into wrestling again. Like he's sort of through us, he's like interested. He watched it, the first AEW show. He thought it was awesome. But he's like, so what's the deal with this, the main event? And we're all like, I don't know, John Moxley's just angry all the time. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, I don't know. He just came back. He won the title. He got really angry, put it in a briefcase, and he's mad. He's mad about everyone. He's mad about the people in his faction. He's mad about the people challenging him. He's mad about the crowd. And then he's watching it and it's like, yeah, he's just angry. Like, why is he so pissed off? And that's what it feels like. Every time they're on the screen, it's these boring, angry men being angry. And that's it. There's not actually much substance or depth to it at all.
Yeah. So it's definitely like bringing down everything else. We're like, look at all the other components going on, whether it's your international championships or whatever those titles are. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of other key components. You see the reactions, like Kenny Omega, big star. They gave him that title. Ospreay, one of the biggest stars going. The whole company should be kind of revolving around him at this point. But I'm assuming that's the main event of All In is Ospreay versus Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
But it still is like, yeah, okay, cool. Like,
it's one of those things where I did think Adam Cole MJF was a weak choice for the first All In main event. Last year's show I thought was a lot better, and you kind of feel like Mox has been the guy in this company where he should probably headline one of these stadium shows, but it doesn't really interest me too much. And I think there are people with better chemistry than Will and Mox as well.
And like the ticket sales are not moving as quickly as I think or as slowly as they thought. Like they just did a show at the Staples Center, which had more people than currently tickets sold for All In, which is in a stadium.
It'll pick up. I think a lot of people are kind of wait nowadays. I mean, that's what you and I do, right?
Yep.
We're like, we get our tickets day of a lot of the time, or just a couple of days before. We're seeing if it's an event we might travel to, we're seeing what the card could potentially look like. I don't think there's necessarily a rush, and especially with how like the level AEW's been at recently with ticket sales, and it's a stadium, you don't have that buyer's like rush of, I don't want to miss out. I don't want this to sell out. So you can wait. I do see it doing pretty well by the time it's the day of. But yeah, we're still quite a few months away.
Like, I love and support this company, but I don't see them getting 20,000 people in that stadium at this point. They have WrestleTix says around 12,000 tickets sold right now. I can't see it getting more than 20,000 people.
I could see them hitting 20. I think
20,000.
Yeah, like Texas, they've done well in Texas when they've played there, and yeah, I could see 20,000.
Okay, you heard it here first. Whose side are you on? I want them to. I really do. But at this point, start giving some tickets out, man. Go to schools. Go to Texas. Go to Johnny Cash like to perform in front of prisons. Go let them come out for a day.
Are we getting you know how to sell tickets? You do the Costco guys versus the Righteous Gemstones with Leslie Jones as special guest referee, right?
The Righteous Leslie Jones Costco guys. I don't know, but like it seems to work because
they have a hell of a choke slam, those dudes.
they do. That was pretty. I forgot about that. That was a solid choke slam. I do think like the weird cross promotions that AEW does work for them, because ain't no Sports Centers or Complex or whoever is sharing clips of John Moxley versus Cope or fucking Will Ospreay for that matter. They're sharing clips of the Rizzler. They're sharing clips of the Righteous Gemstone dudes who I don't even know their fucking names. But like, that's what gets you shared on things and promotions and on TV and stuff like that. Like, I swear to God, I've seen more clips of the fucking Rizzler than anything else from Revolution last week on major, like, you know, social media platforms, TV, news, things like so. I guess it works for them, but people are like so angry. What? But why is Travis Scott there, bro? Why are the Costco guys there? Because it works. Because it makes money.
Yeah, someone needs to like do a bit of an edit, so it's the Cena heel turn with just
the
Big
Rizzler.
Boom AJ in the corner, like or whatever.
I would cry if Big Boom AJ ever turned heel. I would legit just cry. But yeah, like those guys are signed now. These children, think about that. Any young wrestlers out there who've been grinding for 10, 20 years, AEW just signed Big Justice, which is the kid, and Rizzler to contracts. Just think about that. Now, anyone out there, these fucking kids, who are these fucking kids? I don't know. These kids are fucking rich. These kids are more rich and famous than you and I. It's fucking crazy. But it's working. It is something that is working for AEW, where it's like, again, I'm seeing these clips shared on like all these other platforms. Might not necessarily be sharing it for the wrestling, but they're sharing it because, hey, look, these guys were at this event. So it still is a smart thing to do, but we should be focusing on some of the main stuff that like your main core audience is here for. And that sort of stuff is good, but it also might drive some people away. The world title scene is your main story, and it seems to be just the drizzling shits. And I do think that's, again, it's something that trickles down to the rest of the show that can affect it, because there is so much other stuff that I really love. Like, again, I really did love that pay-per-view, whether it's that 3-match stretch, Hangman MJF, or the Costco guys on the pre-show, Ricochet and Swerve. It was a solid show, and it makes me get back into it. And like for the past few weeks, the build to this pay-per-view, I wasn't necessarily feeling the TV, but after watching, I was like, you know what? I gotta see what happens. What's the fallout? What's the like repercussions? And I didn't mind this week's episode of Dynamite. There were some things that I thought were misses.
I think there were a lot of injuries, right? So I think they were kind of affected by that. Like I enjoyed Hechicero, Orange Cassidy. I don't really have much to say about it though.
Yeah,
and it felt like more of the show you'd have at the top of the hour or opening the show rather than your main event. But there was still some interesting stuff on the show. A couple of weeks ago, we went to the Chris Van Vliet interview with the Hurt Syndicate, and MVP pretty much said we are definitely going to have more members at some point. Now, were we expecting the other member to be Maxwell Jacob Freeman?
I mean, I know he loves the spray tan, but come on, that's a bit of a no. I thought that was pretty interesting. It was like the music hit, and I'm like, wait a second, that's We Hurt People, one of the best wrestling themes going. He's interrupting MJF, and then of course there is some history with these two in the past that they brought up in the promo. But I really enjoyed this. Again, this is like a level of interest where it's like, I don't know where this could go. I don't necessarily see MJF aligning himself with the Hurt Syndicate, but at the same time, it's good. Like they're moving pieces around while he's still feuding with Hangman. Here he is now getting a little entangled with the Hurt Syndicate. So I'm all for it. I thought both MJF and MVP, who are, easily some of the best talkers in this company, sounded great and had the intrigue buzz going. Like, ooh, okay, wait, where could this lead to? So MJF, the leader of Hurt Syndicate, coming soon.
I think what I liked about it is it wasn't something I expected. Both like as much MVP, I love MVP on the mic. I think he's so good. So I'm always happy to see a segment, and then going back and forth with someone equally as good on mic as MJF was great. I love the little touch of MVP sending Shelton and Bobby home like beforehand. So you get the kind of feeling that this is something that he wanted to do, but knows the boys aren't going to approve of it maybe. And I think I think some of the criticisms I've had with MJF is it's felt a bit factory reset. He had his babyface run, and then he's just gone back to the the same version of the heel he was at the beginning of the company. So I think this is kind of interesting. He's having a bit of a rut. He's not winning the big matches. He wants to be back in that title picture. And maybe he could consider some representation, because even when he's been in a faction like the Pinnacle or whatever, he's been the main guy, right? He hasn't had like a wise man, if you will, like to work with him. So I like the idea of it. I don't necessarily think he's going to join, but I think it's some interesting stuff we can play about with, and I think it could help MJF's character development. You've also introduced the stuff that it's what boils down is he just wants to be liked by the fans. The jealousy of Hangman, because Hangman can burn someone's house down and the fans love him. And I love Hangman kind of calling him out on it. It's like, you weren't going to set me on fire. You're weak. So I do think it's some interesting character stuff for MJF, which I think's been lacking for quite a bit with him.
I still love him. It's just we can't always put him back in we can't have him as the main featured star. We always rotate and stuff like that. So I find like once you've been champion, Tony doesn't necessarily know what to do with you. That is a reoccurring theme through every champion that's been champion and then lost. So I do think like he's still super entertaining. And I don't know what was more interesting, was this stuff with MVP and MJF, or after MJF talks to MVP, he runs into Hangman backstage, and that's when they're discussing the burning down. So I mean, MJF took the card right from MVP. Next week he lights Hangman on fire. He literally lights him on fire. You bitch, you're a bitch. You're not going to light me on fire.
I mean, that's what MVP said. It's like, you're not hurting people.
Yeah.
You need to hurt people. So
he's definitely going to light him on fire.
I like that. I think as much as I am not enjoying the world title picture, I am enjoying what they're doing with potential contenders. I like how you've got 3 former world champions in MJF, Hangman, and Swerve, who all of them have the same story right now, but in different ways. It's how can I be at the top of the game again? How can I reclaim that glory that I had a year ago or however long it was? And we're telling that story for all 3 of them in very different ways. And I find that very interesting. Swerve kind of reclaiming the jacket, the robe to start with is like his first step. Hangman kind of, reconciling with his demons and feeling bad about the Christopher Daniels retirement and sort of finding himself again. And MJF finding the need to hurt people. And then I think that's all very interesting. Whilst Ospreay is like the hottest guy in the company right now, and he's trying to figure out a way how to get into that title picture for the first time. So I actually think they're doing all of that in a really good way right now, and it's stuff we haven't necessarily seen from them before. As you said, they often drop the ball after these champions lose the title, and I think it's good that all these people have that destination that they want to go to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, at least now everyone is like, hey, I want to be world champion. Hey, I want to be world champion. It's been that way for a little while where everyone's kind of calling out Moxley. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, well, that shit sucks. So, like, I don't want to see anyone. I just want the title, like, drop the title. You don't care about the title. Drop it, and let's get to more, like, interesting things. So I do like when everyone is, like, trying to elevate and go the next way. Like, again, this is a show where everyone's trying to be the best. And when we kind of make it a bit more simple, like, hey, I'm better than you and I want to prove it and I have to beat you and I keep losing. Like, that's some of the best stories in wrestling for years. And like, sometimes we got to do burning down houses and thumbtacks and things to the eye or whatever to get that way. And it usually works, but like, it's all leading to someone facing Moxley, which is like, I don't care if it's Ospreay, Kenny Omega, fucking anyone. It's like, it's not the most entertaining. So that's what I'm saying. Like, let's get away from this, but we're probably not. And it probably will be Ospreay Mox. And we'll just have to hope for the best when it comes to that. But like, you'd hope Ospreay is the one they like rocket. They put that title on and have him run all the way till All In Wembley next year, going in as champion for all that. We know, like, so I do hope that is like the best case scenario is having Ospreay, but there's just so many other guys right now that are so much better. Like, this roster is crazy. This roster is awesome. And I feel like somehow we're still not getting the best potential out of it because Moxley is just this grumpy king on top who's just boring. I don't know. But I'm loving all the direction. I'm loving the stuff with MJF, whatever this is with MVP. I'm really into that. I was really into the Swerve Ricochet stuff, but yeah, there was a bunch of other stuff on Dynamite I liked.
Yeah, the women's division had a little bit of attention with Toni Storm coming out, cutting her sort of celebratory promo, shitting on Jon Moxley a little bit in the process.
A little bit.
But then Megan Bayne coming out and attacking her. So kind of setting up her potentially to be the next challenger for Toni. But she was also involved in this whole stuff with like Willow and Thunder Rosa and Chris Statlander getting involved. Where do you see all this going?
It was great to see them not replicate or repeat the chair thing that we saw a week or so ago. That was really awkward. But I think this is a big spot to instantly put someone who's just debuted, like attacking your champion and then attacking everyone. Basically, like, I'm beating up everyone here and I'm making a name for myself. I think that's pretty smart. Instantly gets people knowing who she is, because the last few weeks, I'm sure people were like, oh, wait, I'm not familiar with Megan Bayne. And like, we have seen her specifically at some GCW shows and some indie shows, and she's been really impressive. So I am kind of, interested to see what she can do on a TV show week to week. And so far, so good. Like, I like this. I'm not saying she should beat Toni for the title or anything, but at the same time, it's good to just push someone like this. Like, this is what you need to do to prove. Like, I think back to the Camille stuff. Now, I'm seeing so many people on either side, like, oh, like they ruined Camille and they wasted Camille. I'm like, no, actually, I don't think they did. I've watched Camille previous to AEW, and she wasn't very interesting. She wasn't very exciting. Her matches weren't very good. And did we get a chance to see that in AEW? Not really. So it's still kind of maybe on fault of Toni or whatever's going on. But right away in the 2-3 weeks of seeing Megan Bayne, way more interesting of a character.
Yeah, I like doing this. I like just throwing someone right in at the top. I don't see her beating Toni, but I've got a theory.
Okay.
Double or Nothing's in May, and Double or Nothing normally has an Anarchy in the Arena match. And I wonder if this year, kind of blood and guts Anarchy in the Arena, we do with the women instead. Now you've got the story building up of Willow and Chris Statlander trying to kind of reconcile. Chris Statlander's trying to make an amends for when they were feuding. Yeah. You have this kind of Megan Bayne, Penelope Ford thing going on at the moment. And then I think the end image of, Toni Storm hugging Mariah May, I think Mariah should be off for a while to sell that match, but could potentially come back to sort of help the babyface team. And really on the men's side, like what you could do, Hurt Syndicate and Death Riders or something. But I think we've seen so many of these men's ones now where to make this gimmick feel fresh again, I'd go with the women. And I think we're maybe starting to see some of those pieces come together, especially with Megan on this show attacking Toni whilst being in this other storyline as well. It could be a way to bring it all together.
That's true. We've not done the women's version of that. And now we've seen that Toni Storm really likes to play with weapons and glass and chairs and all sorts of fun stuff. So it would be pretty interesting. Again, we've seen Megan Bayne in GCW, and she's done some pretty hardcore stuff, and as well as majority of the women on this roster. So like that would be a cool side.
You can have a big Mercedes title match and then save the women's title and do some big faction kind of warfare match.
Yeah. And then Britt Baker comes back. What side is she on? We're not sure what side she's on. Yeah, she's not on anyone's side. And no one's on her side, it seems. Remember Britt Baker? Remember?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. Megan Bayne has impressed in any time we've seen her, and I think it's a good way. And if we're gonna do like a big multi-women match, why not? Like the Anarchy Arena thing has been a little played out with the men at least, so why not? Give the ladies a time to shine. So I'm for it. Good call.
Now, Mike Bailey is All Elite, and Speedball entering the which tournament is this? The International Championship
Fight Kenny Omega tournament number 2. That's what these tournaments are. Don't ever get it twisted. The tournament for the last pay-per-view had the champion in the tournament being like, yeah, the winner faces Kenny. It's like that's how good this guy is. That's the aura of Kenny, is like, yeah, we're not even going to use the promotions and the graphics to be like the winner faces the champion. Yeah, the winner faces Kenny. So that's, he's on the pay-per-view. This is the exact same thing. It's like, hey, Kenny's the champion now, and the tournament is going to be the winner faces him.
So you had Mike Bailey going over Beast Mortis, in which what I thought was a great showing from Bailey.
What a match.
He's so good. That final kick, and I think because you've got like maybe the protection of the mask, he could lay it in a little thicker. He's so crisp with these moves anyway. But I thought he had a great showing.
I mean, we love this guy. We're Canadians, and we gotta support Canadian, even though it's Quebec and we're Ontario. We still support, and I've watched this guy wrestle in front of like 20 people. I've watched this guy wrestle in gyms, in high school gyms, and all sorts of stuff. We see him at local shows all the time here in the Ontario scene, and for the past 5 to 10 years, it feels like I've watched this guy wrestle so many times. So to finally see someone that you've watched, on your independence make it onto TV, I think it's pretty cool, and it was a great showing. He had some new gear. He still didn't find any shoes, but that's okay. But he looked great. I thought he is in really great shape. He had new gear made. Like, he doesn't look like a budget indie wrestler. He came in here and looked like a bit of a killer, knocking that dude's head off. And I love Beast Mortis, another guy we've seen quite a few times on the independents. And this was my match of the show. This was just like, yeah, wait, Speedball's coming out to face Beast Mortis. Yeah, I'm in. I'm about to watch these two guys just do it for the love of the game, and that's exactly what we saw. This was really, really fun. I'm imagining Speedball goes all the way to face Kenny Omega at Dynasty. If we've talked about a match between these two before, PWG many years ago, where Kenny fought Speedball in one hell of I believe we did a PWG best of show a few years ago, maybe during the pandemic, and we talked about that match. And I think we're going to get this rematch, Team Canada versus Team Canada, here at Dynasty for the International Championship. Is that the title? Yeah.
Yes. I actually think it's probably the best thing to do. Now, Mike Bailey's great, but he's not necessarily the greatest on mic or like character-wise. What gets him over is his wrestling. And I think, having a series of matches that just sells you right away, and then in what we know will be an incredible match against Kenny Omega, I think it's a great way of establishing him. So he's got Orange Cassidy in the next round, which will be fantastic. Orange, I just think, is one of the best. Like, he's so versatile. Like, everyone he goes up against, I think
he should have beat Mox for the title.
He should have beat Mox for the title. But I think Orange versus Mike Bailey will, get people who aren't familiar with Mike Bailey familiar with him, and then having
is that next week? Is that this week?
That'll be I believe next week. On the other side, we got
you know what spot we're getting in that match? We're getting the feet in the pockets.
Right.
We're getting the feet into the pockets of Orange Cassidy. That sounds awesome.
And then I haven't actually caught up with Collision yet. So do we know who won the matches on the other side? So
I believe it was Shibata. I'm not sure, actually. I didn't watch either. I usually ask Collision Corsino, be like, hey, was Collision? I didn't check.
I'm sure
it
Magan
out.
has. Magan, who won in the tournament matches?
Yeah, I all I saw was the clip of those two guys slapping each other, if you can call it that. Ricochet had some pretty bad chops in their slap exchange, but I think I don't know who won, but I would like to see Shibata versus
Ricochet
Kenny.
won, no?
Yeah, with the whole push with him, like Ricochet Kenny also sounds pretty good. Like, any of these matches sound pretty good. Mark Davis advanced over Mark Briscoe. Come on, really?
Yeah. So Ricochet won that, and then we had Mark Davis winning. So we'll have Ricochet versus Mark Davis, which is a bit of a weird pairing considering they're both heels, and Davis really doesn't have that much steam behind him.
So,
so I imagine we're getting, I think the final.
Four-way?
Oh, it's a 4-way, right? Yes. Okay. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
it's a 4-way.
A fatal 4-way between. So honestly, like, think about that: Orange Cassidy, Mike Bailey, Ricochet, and Mark Davis. No shade to Mark Davis, but like, come on.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Ricochet versus versus Omega, but like, while Mike Bailey's debuting, it wouldn't be a bad spot to have him win. But I think Ricochet, Kenny Omega is a pretty big pay-per-view.
That's big as well. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike Bailey. I love you and your bare feet, but I want Ricochet versus Kenny.
The only thing with that is, do you want this this version of Ricochet to be losing 2 big pay-per-view matches in a row? Because I see Kenny holding this title until All In for what I imagine will be a unification match with the Continental Championship. Whereas I think Mike Bailey can have a good showing and lose. Whereas Ricochet, I don't know if you want to have him lose another title match, right? Or like, a title match right after his big swerve.
Let's go with Speedball, and then he can lose to Kenny, and then Kenny versus Okada is the like end goal of this whole like title and all that stuff. But then where does Ricochet go for the next like pay-per-view? Does he feud with someone else? Does he spiral up? Does he fight,
Orange? Like, you could spin that off maybe.
Yeah.
Like, Orange hasn't been in a big feud really since the Mock stuff. That could be good.
It's so weird that Mark Davis is in this match. I just forget that he's
someone's got to eat a pin.
Yeah, that's probably why he's in it. I really love the debut of Speedball. Again, really thrilled to see him. I think he'll make a great addition to this roster. He puts on bangers. He's another guy that you put out there with anyone, and like, it's always fantastic. I'm sure people listening, you're familiar with his game. We've been talking about him he's been like the best indie wrestler for the past few years. Like, if he's on it, he was at the WrestleMania weekend DDT show I saw in 2024, and like, again, stealing the show. Like, he's a phenomenal wrestler. I'd say the only thing we've only seen him really on the independents, and his promo game and mic game isn't necessarily memorable, but he's had a lot of time to prepare for this like TV push, and I'm willing to see where we go. And maybe Veda Scott will make her appearance soon over on AEW. But yeah, I'm super thrilled, and I loved him versus Black Taurus. Like, both these guys, anytime they're on the card, I'm like, yep, I'm watching these guys fuck around and find out. So I'm definitely looking forward to that 4-way, and I would like to see the PWG rematch of Speedball and Kenny Omega. Kenny will bring out the chainsaw again, not a real one, but the mini one.
Cut his feet off. Yeah. Was there anything else from Dynamite this week?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. We talked about Kenny Omega. He started the show. He came out wearing a nice Haoming Mask t-shirt, and some lady front row was like giving him roses and like getting him to take all these things, and he's like, I can't take these things with me because I'm starting the show with a promo. Like, can I come back? It was so funny. He's like, thank you, but like, I can't right now.
It's like when our friend, we talked about him a lot of times, our good friend Big Tom, will be going to a concert or a wrestling show, and as we're stood there, like in the pit or whatever, he'll pull out a bag full of t-shirts, like, hey, I got you presents, and you're like, thanks, but like, fuck, now I'm going to carry this around for the next 2 hours during this show.
So I got a big laugh at that. I rewound it to be like, what is going on with this lady trying to give Kenny his roses? She's giving Kenny his flowers, I guess, here, as Kenny gave Takeshita his flowers here, basically saying like, yo, like, this guy's the real deal. And even though like they've had a few matches, like, I feel like this was from the heart.
Yeah. Did you sense a bit of a like babyface turn from Takeshita? They had him come out to like murder Max Caster in that segment, which is normally a bit of a babyface spot. So, and with so much focus being on Kyle Fletcher and the family, I wonder if it's time to break Takeshita away from that. Maybe
it's interesting because it's like, we want to boo this guy, but the biggest push he got was being heel. Like, he only turned heel like last year, right? And then he's stepped up so much, but then it's his wrestling that like just blows people away. Like, he is just a phenomenal talent. So at the same time, I like him as this heel in this faction, but at the same time, if we babyface him again, Will we have the same issue we had when he was first a babyface? Is we don't know what to do with him. We don't know what to do to make him more interesting. When he was a bit of a dick, he was a bit more interesting, as most wrestlers, most common in wrestling. So I don't know. I loved him beating up Max Caster. Just the one forearm. And I loved, Max Caster is fun to hate. And I think he knows his role pretty well, because he's basically like, oh, I said any wrestler to come out. I didn't mean like you, because you're actually really good and I'm scared. And then just the one forearm, really, really great spot. So maybe you're right. Like, where do we go with Takeshita now that he's lost this title? Does he leave this family? Does he start a feud with someone else? Like, there's a few big matches. I, again, would watch this guy wrestle anyone. So where do we go with Takeshita now that he's lost this title? But I put, like, every time he's on a pay-per-view, minus that one Ricochet match, he usually delivers, and he's really, really good. So I'm loving the cast of characters that we have in AEW. It just feels like some of the placements and moving the puzzle pieces around is like kind of annoying me, especially with the main title picture. But loving some of the feuds that we're going, and like we have a way to All In. So it does make me think, what's the Dynasty card going to look like? Is Jay White calling his shot at Ospreay briefly after his promo there? I love the promo from Ospreay. Like, will he be wrestling Jay White at the pay-per-view, maybe in like a number one? Oh, I guess we can't have a number one.
I guess I see Jay White feuding with Cope coming out of this match. Okay. I think a Jay White heel turn potentially.
Again, did he even really turn babyface?
Who cares? I don't know.
What else I loved from Dynamite was some Shakespeare from Chris Jericho talking to the skull or the mask of Gravity. Great John Mayer song. Poor Gravity, however, one of the best Jericho promos in recent memory, where he's just sitting there talking to this mask. Say what you will about Chris Jericho in the year 2025, but you can't tell me that this was a bad promo, because I had my button hovering to skip Chris Jericho's on my screen. Yeah, whoops, my finger slipped. But then he started talking to this mask and talking shit about Bandito's mom. And I was like, yo, actually pretty solid promo from Jericho, reminding the kids, whoa, I might not be able to do, all the things in the ring, but I can still talk trash like one of the best. So I'm not saying they've got my full attention with Bandito and Jericho, but Bandito, this man made fun of your mom and then made fun of it after the fact. I really need to see Bandito get his revenge on Jericho. I didn't realize Jericho was the fucking Ring of Honor champion still, but I guess Bandito should take that back if that's still a show. I'm not quite sure, but I gotta say, I did enjoy his promo yelling at the mask. I thought it was pretty good.
Shall we move on to WWE?
Yes, I think that's all the AEWs from this week. They got some big shows lined up, and essentially the Dynasty and everything. But I thought it was a good Dynamite, and it got me hyped for some of the stuff coming out of the pay-per-view. So I like that. But we can chat about dubs.
So let's start with the main event of SmackDown from Barcelona on Friday, which just a great crowd. I'm so excited for these European shows, just a completely different energy. And hot crowd throughout the whole night.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime they go overseas, like, it's the crowd. Like, if this show had the same crowds that we got in, like, Ohio or Corpus Christi, we would say this was a shitty SmackDown. Like, we would be like, oh, the crowd wasn't there and it was pretty boring. But the crowd can help elevate something and make it seem special and make it feel important. I genuinely think if we had this crowd every week, I think SmackDown would get a bit more of a like oomph to it. And you're seeing about a lot of people just since Friday, like, hey, crowds, Americans, look what these people do. They actually like to be here. They're
trying to get themselves over, Braden. Right. That's what they're doing, right? I thought much better SmackDown than they've had in recent weeks. Still some fat on there, but I thought there was some pretty good matches and moments, and the crowd definitely helped it. But the Street Profits beating DIY to become the tag team champions. I didn't actually realize it's been like over 4 years since they were last champions, and they've only been champions once on the main roster. So actually a pretty big deal. Like, I do like the Street Profits. I think they are I feel something is still missing from this tag division on SmackDown, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But they've definitely been making an effort, with DIY, Street Profits, Pretty Deadly. Who's the other guys we got there? Machine Guns and all that. I thought pretty fun match with DIY, and I'm happy for the Profits because it's been a long time coming, I think.
Love these guys. They definitely have stepped up in the last, I think back to that promo from a few weeks ago. That's like, okay, there's changing a direction of, they're not just the Red Solo Cup guys. Like, we're a bit more serious, and they've been a hot act part of the main roster for quite a while. They're like a safe act that, you put them out and people react, and they usually have pretty good matches. I don't know what it is. Like, this should be meant for me. This should be catered to me. This is all created for me as a fan specifically. Johnny Gargano and Ciampa on the main roster as tag team champions. And I think they stink. Machine Guns come into WWE. Holy shit, you have my attention. And I think they stink. I don't know what's wrong with me. Am I crazy? That match at the pay-per-view at the Rumble should have been like an all-timer.
Yeah.
It was an all-timer forgettable match. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I am not into this title scene whatsoever. Even this match, it didn't really do a whole lot for me, to be honest.
It's kind of what I was getting at. Like, there's something missing, and I like all these teams. I think they're great. I said the other week, I think the problem is with DIY. I think they seem so budget when they're heels. Like, their offense isn't particularly like it's babyface friendly. They're playing comedy heels, and I think a lot of that comes down to their size. Like, you can't play like these mean, aggressive heels when you're smaller than everyone on the roster. It just they lend themselves to being underdog baby faces chasing a title so much better. So I think that's affecting it a bit. Machine Guns, they're great. I'm so happy for them. Like, getting the bag, being in WWE. But yeah, maybe just personality-wise, that hasn't been explored enough with these guys. We haven't. Yeah. We don't really know who the Machine Guns are, other than they're an influential tag team and they're from Detroit. Like, we don't know much about them.
Yeah, like half the fans who watch WWE today don't even know who DIY was from like 5 years ago, let alone know who the Machine Guns are. So like, I don't think they've done enough. Triple H is like, hey, look, open the curtain. Look, you want Machine Guns? I got them. It's like, yeah, but you should probably let people know who they are. And I don't think they've done a good job. They gave them the titles real early. Great moment for them. I just feel like their whole run has been a bit of a wet fart. And that's coming from someone who's watched them since day one. And I fucking love these guys, but it's just not hitting. Like, even in the segment on SmackDown before the match, right? They call out DIY. They're like, hey, and we're going to beat you. I was like, really? Like, how every week I watch you come across as like the least coolest people on this roster. I don't know. And I'm a big fan of all of these teams. Street Profits, DIY, Machine Guns, fucking legendary teams. I've seen them do some great stuff in wrestling, and all of this stuff, even this win on SmackDown, it did maybe at the very end when like it was getting a bit more like built up with the big splash for the finish there. That was great, but like something is just not clicking with these tag teams that on paper you would definitely sell me these matches. Like, we got some great talented teams here, but something isn't delivering for myself. And the past little while, SmackDown has not been a great show. No, I watched. I usually cherry pick, and just today I was like, okay, I'm hearing about the Barcelona and all this stuff. I put it on. There was some good stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, what was it? Must watch.
I think we need a heated personal feud that isn't based on comedy. I think Street Profits are completely the right guys to put it on. I think they've been the most interesting thing about the tag division since coming back. No, I think they're just pissed off baby faces with a bit of an edge. They're like, hey, we're great. We've been one of the top tag teams for years. We haven't had a title for 4.5 years. And then we see these call-ups from NXT running around with the championships. We're seeing these guys coming in from the outside in Machine Guns getting the championships. It's like, no, this is our place. And I like that. I think that's definitely the most interesting thing. But it's like, we got to do something with these other teams to make them compelling to actually have a feud with them. So yeah, I think we're getting there. Like, I think we're definitely we've got the right pieces. Just I don't know what it is that maybe even Pretty Deadly, who I don't think are great in ring. They're fine, but they're trying to make them more serious, which kind of takes away the one thing that makes Pretty Deadly entertaining is them being the goofballs. And now you're trying to have them serious, like chasing the title, but they're just a bit bland. And I'd say that across the division, maybe.
Yeah, no, it like the WrestleMania match is probably another one of these multi-man matches, right? Like with all these different teams in, because you'd imagine Machine Guns get their WrestleMania moment, DIY getting a Mania moment, and Profits. Like those are the three teams, whether you add Pretty Deadly in there to make it a 4-way or a ladder match like last year. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I don't know what it is. Like some of these guys are some of my favorite wrestlers, and everything in the last few months is not really hit for me. Just as a fan, I'm like, I was really let down with that Rumble match, and I've let it go. But since then, it's like they haven't done anything to fix the like problem of whatever it is. So I'm not quite sure what we do with DIY. Like they've been given, a pretty big push and won the titles and all that. And I just still feel like maybe the fans are not necessarily behind them as much. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not hidden for me.
And, but what did hit for me this week, Gunther versus Axiom in what I thought was a hell of a match and a great showcase for Axiom.
Yeah. Gunther went to Spain and fought a kid.
Hey,
he said the line, I pop for that.
Line.
I always pop for people talking about fighting a kid. Cause sometimes kids need to be fought. Okay. Don't forget about it. Just cause you're a kid doesn't mean you don't deserve to get fought. I really thought this was cool. The only thing that gave me a chuckle was, first of all, Gunther making that joke, but Axiom comes out, didn't really get a reaction. And then Lillian Garcia,
disagree. Like as soon as he said a kid, so much of this crowd
when
popped.
He said a kid, people popped. But you know why? Because right before they cut to the front row and showed that football player who happens to be a kid.
Right.
I think people assumed he was about to get in the ring. I think they were assuming he was calling him out. They even cut to him.
Right. Okay.
And people were like, oh, he's talking about this football player. Axiom's music hits. Pretty quiet. And then Lillian's like, hey, this guy's from here. Oh, you're talking about this guy. Oh, yeah. Okay. No one knew who this guy was. Like, okay, half the crowd maybe. But like, I guarantee you they popped because they thought he was talking about. Now, I don't know who this football player is. Pretty successful, pretty famous, I'm assuming. They genuinely thought he was challenging that guy. Now, this was sick, though, because I do love A-Kid. I do love Axiom. I thought this was a great spot to have him in. We've seen these guys wrestle before, whether you like WWE, NXT, or previous, but like two very, very talented guys who've come from, the Europe scene and everything. But I think as soon as Lillian said, like, hey, this guy's from Spain, I think they like reacted because it was kind of quiet when he first came out, but then as soon as she like reiterated that, hey, like Spain's own, in Spanish, they were like, oh shit, okay, well, yeah, wait, we love this guy. So, and you did see like some signs in the crowd. So I'm not sure if this was like an advertised match that he was supposed to wrestle.
I don't think so. I thought they sounded hot the whole time. Personally, I thought they seemed
once the
really
match started, but I'm telling you, they thought it was for that footy player.
Yeah, I loved this. It kind of reminded me of Sami Zayn versus John Cena in the US title run, where we're not necessarily moving up Axiom quite yet, but and that like was similar. People like Sami completely won people over in that match. I think a lot of people who maybe don't watch NXT are going to be interested in Axiom coming out of this. They gave him a lot as well. Like he was taking it to Gunther. And these are the best kind of Gunther matches, when he's playing the big man. You've got a great underdog babyface you're really getting behind. I thought this was pretty electric and such a great move to do. So do we get Gunther, Tony D'Angelo in Italy next week? Is that where we're going now?
Book it.
Yeah.
Book it. He's from Italy, right? Or is he from like New Jersey or Buffalo?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a great spot for this guy. Axiom has stepped up completely. He's always been a good wrestler, but ever since becoming the Axiom character and the tag team, of course, is I think what, has gotten more recognition. And one hell of a run in 2024 and already in 2025, like having an insane run. And I can't wait to see Axiom and Fraxium on the main roster eventually. And I think this was a good like indication that like, hey, look, we're giving them some shine. So I thought this was pretty special. Obviously Gunther was going to win, but they gave you some hope spots with some of the crazy stuff that Axiom can do. Cause he's a smaller dude, but he's very like high flying, but he's very like technical at the same time. Again, when we watch,
he's kind of like Ilya, right? Like he can still strike
maybe
really
more high
hard.
flyer, but
no, high flying, but I'm talking more like size wise, where he's still like, he looks like a smaller guy, but can still hit really hard. His strikes are really crisp, like his kicks, his chops he was landing on Gunther, I thought looked really nice and getting a good sound. This was my favorite part of the show. I loved
easily.
This.
Yeah, this was the reason I tuned in when I saw that this was something that had taken place. I was like, oh, I got to see. First of all, NXT champion right here, NXT tag team champion Axiom taking on the WWE World Title holder Gunther, and yeah, like we've seen this match in the past, and they were pretty good. So this was the draw for me to tune in, and I thought the crowd, once Gunther like power bombed him like 3 times, were like, oh yeah, okay, we still support you. But I thought they gave a great rub to Axiom here.
Magan saying that when they go to London, they should face Nathan Fraser.
Do the opposite, where it's Gunther taking on Fraser. Yeah, sure. Why not? Absolutely. I feel like that team will be brought up on the main roster in 2025. Would that be so crazy? Like post
I think so,
Mania season and all that. Like if they're going to run out of people to face, and we're talking about how the tag team division in the main roster is boring us. Well, we got 2 guys right here who could really maybe spice things up. As Darren in the chat says, long live NXT UK. Yes, absolutely. Never forget.
I also had some fun with Randy Orton versus Carmelo Hayes this week. I thought it was actually one of Orton's better matches. He was there was a certain point where, what move was it? Melo, I think, going for his like springboard clothesline, which got caught into a very like short, snug power slam, like the Randy power slam. I thought was good. And then just like, teasing the build to the RKO. But I thought for a relatively short match, I thought this was pretty entertaining between the two, and then building to the setup for the punt that they keep teasing with Kevin Owens this time coming for the save and continuing that feud.
I mean, we're so going to get that huge moment at WrestleMania with the punt to Kevin Owens to put that away. The super finisher, store 3 of them to hit the punt is how this will happen. It wasn't much of a match. I think the crowd are just so excited to see that football kid was really excited to see Randy Orton. He's a big draw, right? And it's not always that they're across overseas like that. So you could tell a lot of people, you got a really big reaction. I just feel bad for Carmelo. I'm not sure what we're doing with him right now. I'm not sure. He's felt like that since coming to the main roster. He's definitely an afterthought on every episode. I know he had that best of whatever series, but like kind of feels like we're just treading. And we've talked about on Up Next, like, hey, when Trick goes up, would that be a good pairing to go back to like revamp them? Because I wouldn't say like, hey, give up on him, because I think Carmelo has something. It's just I haven't seen it since being on.
Honestly, I disagree. I think he's in a great spot right now. He's so young, and he's on TV every single week.
He's featured,
he's having promos with people every single week. Like, yeah, he's losing. He's taking losses. But I think we see from people like Sami Zayn, it's wrestlers have so much more longevity now. Like, you don't need to push this guy to the moon. Get the crowd to like learn, hey, this guy's a really good talker. This guy's a really good wrestler. It will come. And I think being this character, which is a bit of a punk kid, like he's the, he was the top of his class in NXT. He was the champion. He was all that. And now he's actually where the big boys play, and he's still got that cocky punk attitude, and he's being schooled at the moment. I don't hate it at all. I think you're much better being in a position like this than just being on main event every week.
If you're being featured on TV, like, yeah, absolutely. And he is. And just every time I see him on TV, I don't like what his character is. And another thing is, you talked about DIY taking on other wrestlers, like Carmelo Hayes standing next to Randy Orton. Like, oh boy, Randy Orton's like 2 of him. Yeah. Like, it makes you go like, oh yeah, I forgot that wrestlers these days are a lot smaller. Something airport test. But like, I'm not saying they're going to give up on Carmelo Hayes. Just right now, I feel like he's been floating around. I do think him and Trick together might be like the more interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's then justified when they do it. You know, the reason they get back together is because Melo's been losing. He's been shooting and he's been missing, and he needs his boy back. So I don't hate it, and I do feel Triple H likes him. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be. He's not in like comedy like Santino Marella jobbing. Like he's just a young punk who's like out of his league at the moment, and I think that's okay.
Yeah. Some other things from SmackDown. We had 2 different vignettes promoting 2 different people. Question mark.
Wait, can we go in order, Braden?
Yeah.
We had the Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest beat up thing, heating up this match. We kind of talked about this the other day, where they're in both these guys are like, you know, they were in a great spot last year. They had a good year, and
now we don't care.
They're kind of just leftovers, and therefore we put them together. I feel the match could be really good because I think both will have a massive chip on their shoulder going into this year's WrestleMania.
I agree, but am I on an island? I don't care about it at all. Like, I don't care. Like, either of these guys could be in a bigger match against someone else that could be interesting. But you said it. It's leftovers. It's we don't know what else to do with you, so why don't you just feud against each other? I just don't really care. Even this, I was watching. I was like, yeah, Drew, you had a hell of a year. Priest, you had a hell of a year, and the year prior, I don't know.
I feel they're trying really hard. Like, I've enjoyed the physicality between them. I think both are pretty good talkers. I do put Drew on a level above Priest with that, but I don't think Priest is bad. I just feel there is a sense with us as fans that no, this is just a leftovers match, so let's put them together. And I thought this week they actually did a good job in kind of actually justifying this, you know, taking it back to WrestleMania last year with the cash in. And actually you look back and you go, oh yeah, Priest has kind of been fucking over Drew along the way. But I also agree where it's not a match I'm most excited about. And I don't know what much more they can do to get me interested. I feel I'm going to feel this way until Mania, but I think they could kind of surprise on the day because I think they both feel like they have a lot to prove. These are both guys who have been main eventers. They're on that like upper mid card main event cusp thing where they float around, and both are really trying to solidify their place at the very top. So I think they could actually put on a pretty sweet match at WrestleMania, but I don't disagree where I'm not completely into the story.
Absolutely not into the story. Not one shred. Like I think Drew would have been better off in the mix with Seth, Roman, and Punk. I know it's a retread of Punk and him, but like Drew had one of the best years of his career, the best year of his career. And in return, he's kind of like left on the cutting room floor while everyone else is that he feuded with. Like it feels like he's stepped down, you know, like it feels like he's not evolving. Where if he were to be input with Roman, Seth, and Punk, I think it would have been a little bit more interesting. He's a little younger. He's the guy who can do a lot of the heavy lifting, as we saw in the feud with Punk. He was taking a lot of those crazy bumps in that cell match, and here's your return as you get to feud with someone else that just seems, I love Priest, but it seems like he's just so cold right now. And instantly, like since this feud started, which feels like a few weeks ago when they started, like this felt like the big serious, like, you know, beat down.
The focus this week. Yeah,
like,
they tried
like,
to escalate it more this week.
And sure. I still was like, yeah, I don't know. Just didn't do it for me. So we're going to this for WrestleMania on one of these nights, but it does make me think like, man, Drew, you had such a good year. Everyone was talking about you, and is probably not going to be the case this year.
This came after Priest beating Nakamura. Is Nakamura on his way out?
I don't know. I have another person I had zero interest in right now. Like I could care less about him leaving WWE. Like you've shown us what you could do. I would be interested in a New Japan match more than any WWE match at this point, but I still am like, man, just go surf. If you
I'm not interested in any Nakamura matches
go away.
in any promotion anymore.
It's like, sorry, man. Like, we love you,
sad,
and you were a legend, and people will reminisce about the great stuff you've done. But for right now, if you just want to go surf, then go surf. Like, you're wasting someone else's space at this point. It just feels like that.
They tried heating up the Charlotte and Tiffany feud this week. The best thing they've done so far. Cool thing with the swanton off the stage from Tiffany, but this still isn't clicking for me. I think it's just they've got to have a good match at Mania. It feels like one of those, Sasha Bianca where the build was just awful, but the match ended up being good. This isn't really clicking, but the spot was cool this week.
The best thing that this feud has going is their Twitter spat from like yesterday. So Charlotte's been the one who seems to be poking the bear at Tiffany. And I have this great tweet here. Better than anything they've done on TV. Charlotte Flair says, looks like this, in quotations, new queen came from Temu. Laughing emoji. And Tiffany has quote tweeted, oh, Charlotte, you really want to talk about looks? So, I don't know. More interesting than what we've seen on TV? Yeah, a little bit. Maybe we need that in a promo where Charlotte tells her you're just a ripoff of me, and Tiffany's like, I'm already better than you. I'm already leagues above. I think you said it. Like, the match should be good. Hopefully, fingers crossed, will be good. But so far, the build not the most exciting.
I'm really disappointed they didn't do anything to reinvigorate Charlotte. She's exactly the same. She was away for so long, and this was such a good opportunity to try a new character. But it's still like, I am the queen, I am the GOAT. There's no depth to it. And I thought it would have been a really good opportunity to try and change this character up a little bit.
Yeah, she really she'll pull out like an amazing match once in a while, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's why she's like the star. And then for the rest of the year, she just sucks. And you're like, oh, why does this person keep getting like the push and everything? So it's really bizarre. Like, I think this match should be good on paper. This should be one of the best matches on the show. And are you like, some people are like, oh, I don't know if it will be. I don't know if it will be like the match that we think we'll get. Yeah. And Charlotte will probably go over on Tiffany, who like clearly is one of the biggest stars you have right now. So really bizarre. Not the way I thought this would be, but there's still like 5 weeks. So like, we'll see. Megan in the chat saying it's scary how good Charlotte can be when she's motivated. That's what I mean. Like, it feels like one match out of the 20 matches she has a year is really good, but everything else just sucks.
She has great chemistry with some people, and others just doesn't click. But we'll see when it comes to the actual match.
There's still time for this build. We'll see.
They were kind of playing around with the US title this week, potentially maybe a multi-man going into the pay-per-view. But Jimmy Uso on the chase. Now, I could see this going two ways. I could see you having WrestleMania where, end of night one, Jimmy is the US champion and Jay is your world heavyweight champion. And we do a bit of a,
don't say it.
Yeah. WrestleMania 20 moment. Or you could have where Jimmy isn't even on the card and build resentment and try and do a redo to make good for their terrible match last year. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't say. I don't like LA Knight is still a big character, and people are yen and doing all that stuff. But like, he was on fire last year, 2 years ago, and right now it's just like a retread of the same thing. So I can't say I'm most interested in any of this. I think it's best that he took the title from Nakamura, but like, this guy was really, really over, and like, he still kind of is, but it's like, we're not putting him in the main title picture, so we put him in the US title, and it's kind of rinse, repeat a few times, it feels like. So I can't say I'm interested in any US title picture, but like Jimmy Uso, I can't lie. No, I'm not interested. I don't care about this at all. To be, I think what you're saying is like, hey, have the brothers at the culmination, and like, hey, look, they're twins and stuff. Like, cool, but is there a better match for LA Knight in the US title than Jimmy
I think
Uso?
The thing is, like, Jay's spot feels earned, and it feels like we're telling this story with Jimmy
just because
Jay's got this spot, you know, like it's
Rikishi's watching, just angrily messaging Triple H, you better fucking book Jimmy too, you fucking.
But it's also the US title, like
who cares?
Who really cares? And I think for, you know, WrestleMania is about moments. You know, the last few title matches Jay had, it was Jimmy costing him. So now you can have the reverse, and like Jimmy's okay with Jay being champ.
Jimmy helps him win.
I could see them both holding these two titles up at the end. But I do see it, maybe I don't see Jimmy versus LA Knight in a singles match. That sounds pretty bad.
Yeah.
But potentially, do we do the US ladder match or something, or just a multi-man or something like that?
Three-way, like they did last year, right? It was a triple threat for that title. Like, it's a title that no one really cares about. But I feel like if you have Jimmy, like you're suggesting, we get this moment where Jimmy wins the title, and then if he does, he's not pinning LA Knight. He'll pin whoever else is in that match, Carmelo Hayes. Then we get the moment where it's like, look, the two Usos holding up championship gold at WrestleMania. It'll kind of be like when Jeff Hardy, I was there at Buffalo Armageddon, when he won the WWE title, and then Matt Hardy comes out and he's like, I'm world champion too, but it was the ECW title.
Right, yeah.
People were like,
yeah,
let's give Jeff his moment. And I think that's kind of like, hey, Jay is the one who's put in the work and got over and all this stuff. It's like, I don't know, but I know what you're saying. It would be nice to have that with Rikishi. Then they all do the dance, send everyone home happy. Book it.
We didn't chat because we didn't do a show last week, but we didn't chat about the Bianca and Naomi segment from last week's SmackDown, which I thought was fantastic. I think it's the best Naomi's ever sounded. I thought Bianca's acting in that segment was fantastic, was great. And then we had the follow-up this week with Jade Cargill being interviewed in the empty arena, kind of saying that she's, you know, doesn't trust Bianca either. I thought it was quite a good moment with Liv and Raquel walking in, and they're like, whoa, what the fuck? You knew it wasn't us and you never said anything, and we've been so continuing that as well. But I think they've done good work, the big three in it's one of the stories I'm most interested in WWE at the moment.
I really liked Naomi. Speaking of Rikishi, with her, I did it for
I did it for you.
I did it for the people. Outside of that, I can't say the storyline has too much of my attention because it's going to focus on a Jade match. And it's like, can't necessarily say that's the most interesting thing, but at least the positives here is we're doing stories that don't involve a women's title. That is just a story. And it's like thinking outside the box of, like, you know, stories. This is a story that would usually be given to the men, as we've seen with, like, oh, who attacked who and this and that, who took out this person, who took out Stone Cold, who took out, you know, Aleister Black or whatever. It's like similar story, but using the women in this. And I gotta applaud that like finally we're doing not just like for the title or for this. And it's like, it's thinking outside the box. It's just when the bell rings, I don't know how that like is going to go down. Hopefully Jade has been shooting in the gym and all that. But like, I really liked Naomi. I think Naomi needed something like that, something just interesting to happen with her character. And since then, I didn't really like this Jade stuff, but I don't know if I'm a big Jade fan to begin with. So maybe it's like, it's a little bit of a tough one for me, but I can't deny that I thought Naomi really did a great job last week when she did that promo. So it's good, but like, let's see where it goes, I guess. There's
still question marks with Jade's like in ring. I find her promos and stuff fine. And obviously good, look at her, like she looks incredible. But I do think the next step, we need Naomi to attack Jade again because Jade's killed her twice now. So I think Naomi needs to look like she's got fight in her. Because I worry about this match just being a Jade squash, which would be easier for Jade. You know, if we do have questions about her in ring, if it was just her killing Naomi, it's an easier match than if we had something a bit more competitive. But I am also interested. Sorry,
that will be what happens.
What, the squash?
Yeah, it's WrestleMania. We got a lot of stuff to get through.
Yeah, it's just she squashed her twice. You know, like she killed her in the chamber, killed her on TV last week.
Yeah.
And I am interested in where I think Bianca's performance has been incredible. So I am looking forward to where she fits into it all as well, as she's got the title match.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it a second ago. We got a couple of mystery vignettes. Well, one not so much a mystery, as it seems like Rey Fenix is on his way to SmackDown.
Ooh, yes. What did Rey Fenix say all those months ago on Twitter? AEW is my home and will always be my. Or was that Penta? I forget which one.
Penta,
either way,
said that, yeah.
Either way, both are probably mad at Conan for opening his mouth. But look, they made it. We're fine. The Lucha Bros are fine. They're here in WWE. I think this is great. Putting Rey Fenix on the opposite brand of Penta, which can instantly help him get over as a single star. And then eventually we get the tag team reformation, or the favorite of mine, when these two brothers fight each other, because boy, do I love that. So this guy is an incredible talent. And like, look at the success in about how long has Penta been around for? Like 2 months. 2 months. This guy's been selling merch, moving that merch money, selling those masks, selling those t-shirts. And anyone who watches wrestling or casually watches wrestling or doesn't watch wrestling, walks into the room while you're watching wrestling and Penta's on the screen, any single person would be like, what is that? Who is that? What is that? I like this, whatever this is. He just draws people in, and he's been in a great stuff with the luchador, Americano Grande, whatever his name is, with Chad and stuff. I think it's smart that if we're promoting Rey to be on SmackDown, that again, they can be like separate for a little while. But yeah, man, we've been raving about these guys. We love these guys. This guy's an incredible, and like, think of some of the matches we're going to get on SmackDown that will easily like ramp that up, like make SmackDown, feel good again.
Yeah, I think establishing them as a singles act makes so much more sense. I wish they did that in AEW. Obviously, I want to see them as tag team as well. Yeah. I think down the line, matches with Fraxium, matches with New Day or whatever, like, absolutely, will be insane. But I think we can do 6 months of them separate for now and have them established as single stars, because then it's easier when you want to move them away from the tag team to have them as single stars as well. Because I think there is so much in people's heads. It's so hard to break into singles when you're a tag team, because us as fans are like, oh, tag team wrestler. I remember that when I stopped watching wrestling and I'm then looking and seeing Edge is now an 11-time champion, going, sorry, Edge, the tag team guy, Edge. And there is that kind of almost negative stigma, which people do break out of, but it is there. So having them as these two separate, awesome luchadors, and then eventually coming together for the tag run, I think they're doing it well. This is what we've been theorizing about. I was hoping Rey would come to NXT briefly, but Rey on SmackDown will definitely reinvigorate this division as well.
Yeah, so Chad Gable's going to go to Mexico, Americana Grande, find Conan, and there's going to be this big beatdown on Phoenix. On Penta, on Rey Mysterio, and eventually Rey Fenix will have to make his debut to save his brother or something along those lines. But big fumble for AEW to let the Lucha Bros go, who I think was a big part of the success.
Day one.
Since the beginning of AEW. If AEW didn't start, I think around that time, they probably would have made their way to WWE. They were at the top of the other wrestling, the top of the independents, TNA, Lucha Underground at one point before that. They were a big deal outside of WWE. And now coming in, you have the top luchadors in the world. Obviously, Rey Mysterio will always be numero uno, but you got Penta and Rey Fenix now. They're going to take it. We need that PLE in Mexico.
I was just going to say, now is the time. The amount of Latin American talent they have now, a Mexico show would be insane. Think of what that crowd will be like.
I don't know numbers, but you can see, that Penta has moved merch. That's the sales of t-shirts and masks alone. And we have our buddy Big Tom, shout out Pure Fandom, who, if you ever come to some of our wrestling events, you see he's there and he's always selling different lucha masks. And we've bought different lucha masks. He has a guy down in Mexico who makes masks for these wrestlers, and he gets them from him. So we have really like legit lucha masks that we always have. And he was a bit worried, like, oh no, look, WWE is now selling lucha masks. Complete opposite. He is now selling out all of his Penta and Rey Fenix merch. And I'm like, dude hasn't even debuted yet. And people are like, how do I get this stuff? So they're already like, once you attach yourself to WWE, that machine just keeps going and going. So yeah, I'm really excited to see Rey Fenix on a singles run. And my heart still wants them to join, because that'll be a big moment.
I think headlining a Mexico show with the Lucha Brothers against Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee in the main event. That would be incredible. Great stuff.
Like a singles match between Rey and Fenix. We got to see it at the beginning of the Rumble, right? Like the two of them going at it, and that was in my element, bro. Like I am not part Latino, but I have a very, very soft spot for my Lucha Libre wrestling. And I am so excited to see Fenix, Penta, Rey, Mysterio, all the LWO guys under one roof. So Triple H, book that Mexico PLE. I'll probably go. Like that's a crazy, crazy roster of luchadors that we have here. So can't wait to see what Rey Fenix does. I want to see him come out the gate, put on some bangers. Talking about some of the SmackDown roster, like who would you want to see Rey Fenix tie up with out the gate? Like, they're going to do the similar thing to Penta, where he's beating a bunch of people, to get them steam. But
I mean, we talked about him earlier. Carmelo Hayes would be a good.
Carmelo Hayes comes to mind.
Good first feud, I think.
Andrade. I don't know if he's still on the roster, but Andrade. There's a bunch of people like that you would want to see this guy. I don't know if people could keep up with Rey Fenix, to be honest. Like he's up there. We saw Axiom on the show. Like obviously Fraxium versus Lucha Bros is the big one, I'd say. But really thrilled about
Magan's suggesting Mello v Phoenix as well. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Book it.
But we also had another mystery vignette with the smoke and the number 4. I think most people assuming it's Aleister Black. But we've got there's other free agents as well. But what does the 4 mean? And do you assume this is Aleister?
Yeah, 4. 4 is the amount of times he took a pin in AEW, I think. So that would make sense. I see someone in the chat has this. Chris Jones says 4 is the amount of jobs Aleister is contracted to do. Is it the 4 Horsemen? Is it? I don't know what this could be, but with the black and the white and the smoke, I just assume it's Aleister Black.
Yeah.
Malachi Black. I forget which one is which.
And where would you slot him in if it is Aleister?
I mean, it's on SmackDown, so I'm assuming he shows up on SmackDown.
Yeah, right? But like what kind of feud? Like what would you have him start off with?
I've always been a fan of this guy, but he's done a disservice to himself in the last little while, where I don't really care. At one point, he could have been like the Goth Bay. He could have been the new Undertaker, really. But he just kept locking himself in the rooms, knocking on doors. And then AEW, his run was just, it was a run. I like him still, but I can't say I'm like,
I'm kind of the same. I don't see who he's feuding with in my head. Like I feel I can slot Rey Fenix in easier than Aleister Black, and I think I have negative interest in this point. Like he's, as a fan, I've completely lost interest in him from his run in AEW.
It's just like himself. Like I think your aura is only diminishing because of yourself.
Yeah.
Like imagine the Undertaker. I mean, bad timing because the Undertaker, all he does is go on podcasts and stuff. But like, imagine that, like during your whole run, just like, don't talk, don't say things, don't do Twitch streams and this. Like, I just can't, like, I don't know. Big fan of this guy, especially, the last few years. But I'd say in the last year or two, just the negative aura, the effect that you did it to yourself. Like,
yeah.
So maybe there's a chance this comes around, and like, again, I'm not completely, saying it's a write-off, but like, I would like to see him come back to WWE. I think this is for Aleister Black, Malachi Black. And if so, hope we get that theme song back, because that was an all-timer for me. I loved his I loved his AEW theme too, the Screaming Goats, but I loved the Everything Is Always Evil or whatever. I love that.
He changed that though in WWE when he was on main roster anyway.
When he left, yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be some shitty music.
Yeah, I like the guy. I'm willing to see what happens, but like, yeah, he's just gonna face everyone and not ever lose because it's in his contract to never get pinned. So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Anything else from WWE this week? Then we had Fatu like attacking Braun more. I imagine we're gonna get some sort of gimmick match between those two.
Loved the promo from Jacob Fatu, man.
He's
like
so good.
Yeah, no one can match that raw like intensity. Like,
yeah,
that's what I mean. Like wrestling right now in WWE, as much as it's so on fire, I tune in and I'm seeing like the same like cookie cutter stuff that makes me not like WWE. And then it cuts to this guy and he's like unlike anyone we've ever seen in wrestling. So I'm like, man, there's got to be a balance here where I'm loving some of these characters and stories, but when it cuts to this guy, I'm like, oh, they have something with this guy. I'm genuinely scared of this man. So whatever he's on, I want it. Like I one of the best rookie years. Like he should be champion. I don't want to see him versus Braun Strowman at WrestleMania. It probably
I don't know if it'll be WrestleMania. I could see them doing like, although it might just be some sort of wild match, a palate cleanser, like where you just Braun is fun at those things, and I think Fatu has been as well. So just a like quick sub 10-minute just barricade spots, table spots, and all that moonsaults and stuff could be quite fun. But I could also just see it being a SmackDown main event going into Mania.
Because you could do Jacob Fatu US title, LA Knight.
I wonder if you put Solo in there as well, like they're all kind of surrounding that scene as well. So maybe.
Yeah, I'd say he's the breakout of this Bloodline 2.0. Like, again, just in like the 30-second, minute-long promo, I'm like, oh, man, you are like special. You are so different than any other wrestler that I can think of that's just like screaming at the mic, like looks like he would kill you. So big star on their hands with this guy. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Some other things I saw some rumblings about a wrestler who might be on the free agent list, Jeff Cobb. Coming to some people's attention on social media and so forth. So there's apparently some interest with him leaving New Japan and going to WWE. And I don't know, how would you feel about Jeff Cobb? I think anytime anyone's first look at Jeff Cobb, you'd be like, oh, look, dude's a fucking tank. He should be in WWE. So yes, but also he's a bit of a hit and miss wrestler for me. We've seen him have big match opportunities and not necessarily deliver, but then he's had other matches and moments where I'm like, oh man, you were like really good there. So with that being said, something that comes to mind is like, I maybe wouldn't put him on a Raw or SmackDown, but we do need some dudes in NXT. So that does come to mind. Jeff
Cobb over Femi sounds good. You know, I like Jeff Cobb. I agree. He's not always my cup of tea, but he's had some excellent matches and runs as well. And it's kind of, I feel it's time. Like he's one of those guys like, yeah, get the bag. You know, it's you've done New Japan for so long at this point. He's flirted with AEW and doesn't seem like he's going to go there. I think he'd have been in AEW by now if he wanted to, and that was an option. Yeah. But you know, it's a way down the line because of injury. But the idea of Jeff Cobb and Bronson Reed as a tag team, I think would be like the new Natural Disasters. Shout out going into the Hall of Fame, but that kind of thing, just like big man team throwing people around. I know B Detroit in our like private chat was saying the finish of the Tour of the Islands into the tsunami. You can kind of picture it right now, but I like that. And as an idea, and you know, down the line, like War Raiders against Cobb and Bronson could be real fun.
Yeah, that is true. Like as a tag team, he could be definitely used that way. I've always liked his wrestling. I just always think like certain times we've seen him live. We've seen him in indie shows for so many times. And again, he's awesome, but there has been big, maybe I'm still sour, Davey. MSG, ROH, New Japan, Super Card of Honor, Ospreay versus Cobb. I'm pretty sure it was one of the opening matches. wasn't very good. And ever since then, I've been like, I'm not trusting you, Jeff Cobb. But that's not fair because he's had some big moments. Shingo at Wrestle Kingdom, that was a fucking match. Holy,
he's very good in ring. I think it comes down to, though, it's like personality wise, how is he going to fit into in WWE? Because when you have someone like Jacob Fatu who is just cutting these promos, and I've never really seen that in Cobb. And it is different. Like AEW, you can get away sometimes just by coming out and having a good match. Whereas it's the presentation. And I can see in my head the match of Obafemi versus Jeff Cobb. Can I see the promos building to that match? No.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, maybe that, like, look, if everyone always says that his wrestling was good and maybe his promo and character was maybe something that was missing, that's what you go to NXT for. That's what you go to WWE for, and they help you.
And some you see at times where people surprise you as well. Like maybe you're in Japan. Like why you don't really need to cut the promos a lot of the time in Japan. So maybe it's just we haven't seen it, and he could surprise us. I hope NXT. I think that makes most sense for now.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because like we were joking on Up Next many times, like, oh, if Rey Fenix follows his brother, like NXT would be sick. But nah, he's already past that. Like he's huge, and they would make so much money out the gate with Rey Fenix masks that they're like, nah, you're going to SmackDown right away. So it's like, yeah, that's a smart, wise choice. Whereas a Jeff Cobb might need some time down there to get like established, essentially.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else from this week in wrestling. Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Backlash being announced for St.
I just lost Davey. He left me. He left me on red, everybody. He just had enough of talking to me.
Sorry about that.
I want to talk about back.
I went to click back to get the graphic of Backlash up.
Backlash.
Which is gone, but instead I accidentally pressed back on screen.
Okay. Yeah. I was holding it down for you.
Cool. But yeah, Backlash in Missouri.
Backlash in Missouri sounds great. Not in Mexico like Bad Bunny thought it was going to be when he posted that fake one a few months ago. But yes, Backlash May 10th. So, hey, Matt Ross in the chat, friend of the show, says, hey guys, I'm in Mexico City right now. Let me know if there's any wrestling shows I should go to. Ooh, Matt Ross. I will definitely, first of all,
Arena Mexico, CMLL, right?
One of our old friends here in Toronto, now living in Mexico, I guess. We got to tell him where to go. Go watch some lucha.
Yes, Matt, look out for any CMLL shows.
And turn around and run away. No, Backlash May 10th is a big one. Randy Orton going to have a big match, you presume, at WrestleMania. Maybe it's Orton
Cena.
Orton Cena for the title.
Yeah.
Iron Man.
Iron Man. Oh, good match. I could see Orton Cena headlining Backlash St. Louis. I mean, it's St. Louis. You got to do Orton.
But then, what is Cena's last match if it's not Randy Orton? Like, if we're doing that match here, what's the Boston match going to be? Right? Like, that's probably reserved for Randy Orton. I thought, but
unless you do a Cody rematch or something.
Like Backlash could be Randy Orton versus Kevin in like a crazy unsanctioned thing because the rematch for Mania or something. So that also comes to mind. What comes to mind for us, though, we're here in Toronto, support Canadian. Maple Leaf Wrestling has a show that same day. They recently switched from Sunday, May 11th, Mother's Day here, to Saturday, May 10th. So first it was like, do I want to hang out with your mom or do you want to go see wrestling? They chose wrestling. Then they went, let's change it to the same day as Backlash, which I think is a bold move, which, it's going to definitely make some people go, can I just watch wrestling at home tonight or do I go out?
They moved it before Backlash was announced, to be fair. Didn't they?
I don't know about that, actually. I think they actually moved it the day after Backlash was.
But like you're
announcing,
you're not making that decision the day after, are you? Yeah. Like this would have been in the works.
Yeah. So Backlash going up against Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. They did do a show this weekend. Well, just on the topic, they did do a show in Windsor yesterday and Friday, which looked like they had a great turnout here for Maple Leaf Wrestling. But the big story coming out of that is Josh Alexander coming out at the very end and saying that he will be at Maple Leaf Gardens, Mattamy Center, aka Loblaws, here in the city for that show on May 10th. And I mean, I don't know who his opponent would be, but it's Toronto. Fingers crossed for some big Toronto. I mean, he's the biggest Toronto star going right now, outside of a few guys over in AEW. So my fingers crossed, my knocking on Canadian wood right now for hopefully we get some big Maple Leaf Gardens Canadian Dream match in May. So stay tuned for more Maple Leaf Wrestling.
And listen to John Pollock's interview with Scott D'Amore all about Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, which is on the Post Wrestling feed right now.
And our going back to our friend Big Tom, Pure Fandom, he's got this replica that apparently is like the only one made of this Maple Leaf Wrestling title. And I've heard that they might need to borrow it for an angle or something, because like this title is really, really heavy. I didn't even know this title existed, but it's got some great lore to it. But I didn't get to check out the Windsor shows this weekend. There was just a lot going on, and I was trying to catch up with Dynamite and SmackDown. But them coming to Maple Leaf Gardens is a big deal in May, and I think that's pretty cool. So even though it's against Backlash, it's splitting your audience. I do think people will still in this city turn up for some great wrestling at Maple Leaf Wrestling. So stay tuned for that coming soon.
All right.
But I think that's about it. I
think that's everything.
I mean, other than seeing John Cena with what looked to be new hair.
Yes.
That was also a big, he turns heel and he's like, I'm tired of you making fun of my bald spot. So he went and got that fixed. I don't know how, I don't know, when, but it looked like his hair is a little different from this week. So we'll see.
Good for
that's
him.
It. Yeah. Good for him. Why not? He's a heel now. He's got to.
Yeah.
Unless he shaves it and grows like a beard, but I don't think that was the route. So that was us talking about wrestling today. I hope we kept you entertained for the last 2 hours. Appreciate everyone listening and supporting as you always do. I see some people in the chat there. Chris Jones, Chris Leone, Matt, Megan, the whole lot there. Appreciate all the love, our Poison pals. We will be back next Sunday here, 2 p.m. to chat all about the wrestling going on, whether it's the Cody Rhodes, John Cena face-to-face, SmackDown, Dynamite, everything else going on in the world of wrestling. We will be here live 2 p.m. Sunday right here on Poisonrana. Hit that subscribe, hit that follow. And this Tuesday, I will be joined by John Ceno Evil to talk about some NXT on Up Next at 10:05 p.m. on Post Wrestling. And last plug, Poisonrana.ca for links of all the podcasts, including our Patreon, our WrestleMania 18 review, our Godfather Part 2 review, our Best of the Best review, Champ is here, all 7 episodes, and so much more. And happy St. Patrick's Day with our Leprechaun in the Hood.
I've got 2 more real quick plugs. First one, check out the new episode of Eagles Don't Hunt Flies. It's available on our YouTube and on this podcast feed. Dickie, Martin, and Brandon going through Jon Moxley in Japan. Check that out along with John Cena's Shot in the Dark, covering everything you might have missed in the world of pro wrestling. And finally, if you have Twitter, tweet at Traitors Canada and tell them how you want to see me at Davie Portman in season 3 of Traitors Canada. Please help a brother out. Thank you.
Go retweet. Support the cause. Appreciate everyone out there listening as always, and we will chat very, very soon. So as always, take care of yourselves. Be safe. Happy 316 day and split the G. Happy St. Paddy's Day. Goodbye.
Ahoy!